Welcome back to Morgborg Tech. Today we are taking a look at the all-new BLU View 4 for Tracfone. This is one of Tracfone's latest entry-level smartphones, retailing for $30 from Tracfone and your local retailer, including Walmart and Target, which is actually where I picked this one up. This is the replacement for the BLU View 2, so I actually have it right here. This will be a future video. The BLU View 2 is an old phone at this point, I think a couple of years old. It's finally been replaced and discontinued. As you can see, I picked this one up for 15 bucks. That'll be a future video, but here is this phone here. I'll unbox it for you, take a look at some of the features of it, and give you my thoughts on the phone. So, once again, Tracfone has changed their packaging from what you saw a few months ago. So they've completely done away with the flap. Now it's just a pretty basic box. We get our specifications on the back. So we get a HD plus roughly 6-inch display, so 720p. This is actually the first phone in the BLU View lineup to have a notch. Other BLU View phones, including the 1 through 3, all had bezels. 13 megapixel camera on the rear, 8 megapixels on the front, good for 1080p at 30 frames per second. You see 30 hours talk time, 32 gigabytes of internal storage, supports Wi-Fi calling, and hearing aid compatible. This is an LTE phone running on Verizon towers, like all Tracfones. So here are the box contents, just standard stuff. And yeah, that's about all that there is going on, so let's crack into this thing. Right on top here is the phone. Let's go ahead and take this out. So you can see this is already assembled. I don't believe this back cover comes off at all. And we can see the nice textured design on the back. This actually feels pretty decent. Here's just our activation information. Terms and conditions of service. Here is the charging brick. Can't see it very well, but it is USB-A. And here is the USB-A to USB-C cable. We get a SIM ejector and some documentation. Alright, so clearly from what you just saw, the battery is already in this phone. Obviously it's non-removable. So let's go ahead and take this screen protector off. There's one more back here. So just some extra specs. This is rocking a 2 gigahertz MediaTek Helio A22 processor. So I'm not sure how well this one will run, being a lot of phones nowadays use octa-cores. Quad-core processors are pretty outdated on Androids. And just with knowing that how heavy Android is nowadays, we get 3 gigabytes of RAM. In here, presumably, we have a micro SD card slot for 128 gigabyte expansion. Beyond that, this is a pretty basic phone, so let's turn it on. Pretty interesting startup screen. So just something that I noticed when going through the setup, if you choose to agree to the device usage terms, notice this at the bottom. So you might see links to Amazon pages within the phone's interface. And also, this is a great way to show it off. For a 720p 6-inch display, this is surprisingly crisp, easy to read text. Usually 720p screens on this size don't fare so well. But yeah, surprisingly impressive. Viewing angles are very good. These low-end phones have definitely come a long way. Alright, so I have set up the phone and turning on here. Here is the lock screen. You can see notifications, and this clock right here has a slight bluish color. Swipe down, get your notifications, and a few quick settings, including your flashlight. There you go. Decently bright. You can swipe from the bottom, get to your dialer. Or from the bottom right and get to your camera. So let's take a look at the camera real quick. We get some photo settings down here. Get some filters. So you can play around with this. You see the names of them pop up. Change the colors. I'll turn that off. You can adjust the screen ratio. So I've changed it to widescreen photos. And you can turn on your flash. So you see, I'll do this here. We get more settings here. This is beauty. And we get some face filters. Can adjust this here, skin, the whitening. These are all face settings, and rosy. We have time lapses. There's your adjustments for that. And we have motion photo. Here we have video. You can see some lag when I move the camera, so video will probably be laggy. I'll test that out in a bit. We can adjust the quality. And bring it out to the corners. Flash it down there. Up here, you can turn on or off your shutter sound, geotagging, or restore the default settings. And here you get professional, where you can adjust your ISO, shutter speed, this must be white balance, and you can adjust your focus. Down here, you can switch this out. So that's the camera for you. Like I said, I'll provide some samples in a bit of that. In the meantime, let's go to the settings. We can see out of 32 gigabytes, 9.6 are used out of the box. And we are running Android 12, so not the latest version of Android. So from the home screen here, this is the default layout. We get our Tracfone apps and a few folders full of various apps. There is a little bit of bloatware on this phone, do keep that in mind. We have our One Weather widget at the top. Swipe to the left, we get our Google feed. Swipe down, we get all of our apps. Swipe down from the top and we get our quick settings, which includes Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, do not disturb, the flashlight, our rotation settings so you can do auto rotate or lock the rotation, device controls. You can see it comes with the Google Home app by default. Battery saver, mobile data toggle, airplane mode, night light, so this will be a sort of a blue light filter. You can actually record the screen without a third-party app, so that's pretty cool. And we have nearby share right here. So you can share stuff to other Android devices. You can tell as I'm just going through these menus that there is a bit of lag on this phone, so keep that in mind. At the top, here's the date, the time. We get our icons and our brightness slider. This phone does support auto brightness, but you can't toggle that on from the quick settings. You have to go to the settings app to do that. Down here you can bring in more icons, including all these here. So we have a lot of features to choose from. We can power off the phone, restart it, or turn on the emergency mode. And we can go to settings. So a lot of the settings in the settings app on this phone are pretty standard features, but a couple here that stand out include conversations, so you can prioritize conversations in your notifications. And you can enable or disable notification bubbles. So on your home screen here, you'll have your bubbles. You see one for Google. If you want to, in the battery menu, you can show your battery percentage in the status bar, which I'm going to leave on from this point. This phone comes with a storage manager, so if you turn this on, the phone will automatically remove photos and videos from the device that are, here you can see, over 90 days old. You can change this here to 30 or 60. Do keep in mind, if you choose to enable this setting, it would probably be in your best interest to back up your photos and videos through something like Google Photos. At the bottom of the sound settings, most of these tones are disabled by default. This is the default settings. You can turn on these sounds if you want. There you go. So we can see here in the display settings, we have dark theme here that you can set a schedule for. Turn that on. This will give the interface a dark theme. It'll invert the colors. So by default, we have a light background. And your night light, you can set a schedule for it and adjust the intensity. Turn it on, it'll kind of yellow the screen, and it'll be easier on your eyes for when you're trying to go to sleep, or if you're trying to read for long periods of time. Use this and it'll be a little less strain on your eyes. Adaptive brightness here. This will adjust the brightness of the display based on the conditions of your environment. You can adjust the display size. So here's large, here's small. This is the default setting. In the accessibility menu, we have a pretty interesting setting here called extra dim. where you can see down here, make the screen dimmer than the normal minimum brightness setting. So let's turn this on here to demonstrate. You can adjust the intensity here. You can see it becomes rather dim, as it should. You can keep it on after your phone restarts, and you can create a shortcut either with the volume keys or with a sort of pop-up icon. Now, something to note is that this phone does not have a fingerprint sensor, so you cannot use any sort of fingerprint unlock. These are your only options, other than face unlock. In the safety and emergency menu, you can include emergency information. So if you were in an emergency, somebody could pull up your phone and have your information. Here you can add emergency contacts. You get emergency SOS. Emergency location service and earthquake alerts. And down here, your standard wireless emergency alerts. By default, when you press and hold the power button on this phone, you'll be directed to the Google Assistant. You can turn this off in settings. So that's about it for the features of this phone. If there's something I didn't cover that you'd like me to address, just leave a comment and I'll get to you as soon as I can. So let's go ahead and test out the video, display, and sound quality of this phone. I have one of my YouTube videos pulled up here. Actually, the latest one as of recording this video. And when I'm playing this, this is the speaker on this phone. You'll notice that it sounds really bad. There's basically no bass. It's a tin can, and it's easy to muffle. And just another note, I have the quality set to 480p for now, because if I set it any higher, this video can go up to 4K, although this phone only supports 1080p on YouTube. There will be a horrible lag. So let me show you this. Welcome back to Morkborg Tech. In this video, I'm coming at you with a phone that cost me a grand total of $2.72. You see how easy it is to muffle. I won an auction on eBay. I was the highest bidder for this phone. The final bid was $250, and however, setting the phone on this table here, actually, I think it might be thanks to this camera bump, the speaker actually doesn't muffle too bad. So, you see here, this is 480p, so it's not going to look so good because this is a 720p display. See, zoom in here. So let's change it to 1080p at 60 frames per second. You'll see just how bad this phone lags. This is a problem with a lot of budget phones nowadays. They just cannot play high-resolution YouTube videos. Welcome back to Morkborg Tech. In this video, I'm coming at you with a phone. So you can see pretty bad, but on the plus side, the display looks pretty good. Viewing angles are actually pretty decent. Colors on or off axis do kind of wash out just a little bit. They become bluish, but otherwise not bad for a budget display, but the sound quality is just terrible. Now, something that I just noticed as I've been playing around with this phone is we have some apps that just auto-installed. So these can just be uninstalled. You'll probably want to do the same unless you play these games. Let's take a look at browsing performance on this device. So I'm going to pull up CNN because it's a pretty heavy website. As you can see, it's still loading. There's a little bit of lag. Smooth scrolling with this phone is not something you're going to experience. For that, you'll need to put in a little higher budget than 30 bucks. With all the reloading that this website needs to do when I scroll, you can tell that this phone doesn't have a ton of RAM. It has 3 gigabytes of RAM if you're curious. On the plus side though, text is relatively easy to read and colors are pretty decent. Alright, so let's go ahead and test the cameras. Alright guys, so as you can tell from the camera and audio quality from those videos I just showed you, the camera quality, it's not terrible, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. While on the other hand, in my opinion, the audio quality is garbage. There's absolutely very little quality coming out of those microphones. So what's my final takeaway for this phone? Well, for not much more money, you can get a much better phone. So my advice to you, if you're considering this phone, is if you have more money at your disposal, then get that instead, because this phone leaves a lot to be desired, even with the improvements of budget smartphones over the years. This phone just really doesn't cut it, in my opinion. And also, as a side note, this is the first review I've done of a smartphone in quite a few years. So I'm sure this video is far from perfect. So if you guys have any suggestions on how to improve this type of video, should I decide to do it again, your comments will be much appreciated. So yeah, that is my review of the BLU View 4 from Tracfone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for the next video. Peace.